were asked to basically create a marketing plan, right, for 2023.
Yeah.
Don't really have a like benchmark data, right? You don't have a lot of history. Would you like to tell me a little bit about the company?
Yeah, for sure. So I joined, I'm the first marketing hire, and my role is like demand gen. I'm reporting to the head of go-to-market. So he's overseeing sales, marketing, really most things. My goal is to really help create like the pipeline to drive the future sales. And so I started drafting out my like kind of budget sheet and etc. I don't know what channels work. I don't really know what any of our conversion rates are. All I have is like a little bit of traffic conversion data in Google Analytics. So like I a little bit know if I do something on LinkedIn, it's going to boost the traffic, right? Or I know like what pages people are frequenting. I like kind of know the SQL conversion rate, but again, like that's off of a certain type of person, not off of like a marketing lead. So I'm just trying to figure out like the best way to go about like starting to craft that plan without the actual historical data.
So I'm going to show you like how we go about doing this using like the revenue and pipeline standard kind of metrics, but you can do the same thing. So first, I would like to share with you the way that we see things in terms of how you actually build that, regardless of whether you have history or not. And then we can kind of translate that to a case where you don't really have a lot of historical data. I'm going to show you like the basic model that we have here. We call it, what's the problem? So for you, the problem is that most of these numbers are historical numbers, right?
Yeah.
I really thought about your case specifically because I had to do it before, honestly. And I started to formulate what I did to work this out. And I can share with you kind of an idea that I have about how you should do it if you don't have any historical data. What I would do is first try to obviously guess and benchmark, right? There's no other choice. So the first thing that we do know for a fact is that, for example, you need to get to 3 million ARR, right? And we know, let's say that the start of the year is 1 million and a half. Then we kind of need to split the targets. So we take that number and we say, okay, how much of this is going to be generated by marketing? Do you want to have like a specific number here, or should we just stick to this default one?
That's fine. I mean, we don't have a number, like nothing has been set out yet. So
right. So that's, again, these are things, this is when we start to discuss things that you don't really have data for, right? When you come into like this territory, what I would do, I would try to find benchmarks, but I would input this by basically negotiating with the CEO/CFO or salespeople, right? Like so we can look at what we already have, even if it's very little data, and just say, we don't expect more than, I don't know, 60% to come from marketing, given that the marketing immature, or maybe 50% outbound, imminent when you're very small, right? So let's keep it like this just for the sake of things. And now we're getting into places that are harder to kind of measure at this moment. So again, kind of guesswork and assumptions, and make it like as accurate as you can. So for example, average selling price would be
100K.
So that means that total you need like 15 new customers. Opportunity to close rate, we said like 20%. So we need 73 opportunities. And then you start to assume all the way up. So again, even if you have only 3 for now, that's even fine. If you don't have anything, you can still assume, you can go and get benchmarks. But the idea here, like, again, I'm going to show you how I would do it. Like, this isn't really interesting because we're guessing, right? But I want to go through everything. So basically you go up all the way to leads here, giving you like the full funnel of what you need to generate. Then we need to choose a proxy metric. So in terms of your sales cycle, how long is your sales cycle at the moment?
Our close rate is about 35 to 40%, and our sales cycle is about 30 days.
All right. Okay. So 1 month. I would assume higher, like a higher sales cycle, just because it's super early, and we know that in B2B, like a 1 month cycle is super fast. So I would take like 2 months at least. Now, assuming that lead to customer is 2 months in your case, right? This is our assumption. Again, nothing backed by like very concrete data, but we assume it's going to take us 2 months to close from lead to customer. We want to optimize our budget at least like, I guess, once a month, right? Like we want to see if something works and kind of make changes if it doesn't once a month. or even
Yeah.
in time intervals. I would say, and again, this is intuition, right? I would say that lead to SQL would probably be less than a month in this scenario, whereas SQL to customer would be at least another month to negotiate the deal.
Right, right.
So if we're going with this intuition, we're going to say that you can actually use SQLs here as your proxy metric because it's bottom of the funnel, but you can still optimize it on a monthly basis. You can still make changes if you need on a monthly basis. So let's choose SQLs here on proxy metrics, and we have like this generated automatically from our funnel. The percent of pipeline that we close during the year is basically a way for us to take into account the lag between lead generation and customer conversion. So this is the number of SQLs that you'll need to generate, taking all of this into account. Then you take the total marketing budget last year. So is it zero?
Yeah.
Okay, so a number of SQLs is also zero. It doesn't really matter this in this case because
Yeah.
it's used to calculate the cost per, and since the cost is zero, it's going to turn out to be zero
Right.
anyway. So let's put this on zero for now, and I'm going to show you what we're going to do with it. So as you see, like it's very like we can't generate the total budget, and we can't like generate all we have now is the ARR goal for marketing specifically. Okay. So what would I do now in this point? I would first off duplicate this, and I would add a column called actuals. Now, every number that we have here, except for the numbers at the top, which are like given to us by our CEO, basically, can change very drastically as you actually try to do things. Meaning, once you start spending some of your budget in LinkedIn, Facebook, Google, starting to do some demand gen stuff, things are going to change, especially, by the way, in terms of costs, right? Like cost per here. So what I would do is first, in terms of cost per SQL, I would benchmark this for sure. Let's create a cost per customer target.
Right.
So saying we're going to make around 10,000 per customer. So we're going to have, I guess, a 4x ROI, right? Like this is up to you, I guess. So 4x ROI, we're saying like basically 2,500 cost per customer. And then we basically need to do like to work it up the funnel, right? So 2,500 is our cost per customer. Our total conversion rate of the funnel to lead, let's do it to SQL actually, like 15 out of 121 gives us a 12% conversion rate. So basically we take this number and do a 12%. So the cost per SQL would be 300 to reach this number, right? Like this is the benchmark number, okay? So we're left with $300. So what we're going to do is basically override and just add 300 as the cost per SQL. Okay? So given a $300 cost per SQL and our need to generate 94 of those, we're going to be needing $28,000 of marketing budget. So far makes sense? This is very, very like unit economic based, right? Like it's not like if you want to have additional budgets so that long-term we build brand and stuff, you can basically add that on top of that.
Right.
Assuming that this is going to
This is like assuming dollars in, dollars out.
Okay, so just to take this to the next step. So after you have like a kind of a cost and a plan, regardless of like you can play with it as much as you want. What I would do is I would start filling out the actuals as I go on a basically a monthly basis. So I would start with like basically getting the budget, starting to work with it, seeing what happens after 1 month. If after 1 month we're not seeing that we're getting anywhere close to our numbers in terms of costs, in terms of conversion rates in the upper funnel where you can actually have that conversion rate, I'm going to create an alternative plan. Basically input the numbers, the new numbers, and recalculate everything based on that. So I'm going to acknowledge the fact that it's very hard to do this the first time, right? Like without any historical data. And I'm going to do a 1 month update, 2 months update, 3 months update, all the way to the first quarter. And I would communicate that to management. So I would tell them that this is how it's going to be when I present the plan, so that they know that this is dynamic and this is going to change. On the first year, the plan should be super dynamic. There is no reason whatsoever to commit to numbers and then just go with them without any reason. So as you generate more data, you need to already have kind of the approval to go back to management and say, So we expect, and it's very specific in this case, right? Like you can say we expected an average selling price of 100,000, but our average selling price is $70,000, and this
changes everything, right?
Yeah, exactly. Or our conversion rate from lead to MQL rate is actually 10%, so this changes everything. And you need to understand what you're going to do with that. Are you going to change the plan? Are you going to invest more?
Right.
This gives you a very good health check. You can look at each one of these as the different components that you need to work with in order to reach your target. And if something doesn't work, it's very easy to pinpoint it and say, this isn't.
Here's the problem.
So you're saying, I can't guarantee anything in this plan, but this is kind of a guesstimation, right? It's not a total guess. And on a monthly basis, we're going to look at the numbers and make sure that they still make sense. And if not, we're going to change the budget, we're going to change the plan. And this is kind of your strategy overall. Like you have one part that's stating which budgets go where and why. But the second part is actually explaining to management, this is an ongoing process for the next year. I'm not going to be able to just tell you, this is what I need and that's it. It's going to be a range, and I'm going to have to increase if I see that we're very far off from our targets. So yes, that's the overall concept. And I think it should be pretty easy to go from here to actual channels. Hey, so to summarize, if you want to create your first budget plan and you don't really have any historical data to work with, the first thing that you do is create some benchmarks based on industry standards or whatever you have currently, as shown in the video. The second thing that I recommend is that you create the actuals tab, where you can actually track results versus your assumptions on a monthly basis. And the main thing to remember is that when you create your first plan, it's very easy to mess it up. It's very easy to have one number that's off, and that's changes completely the budget that you should have requested or the targets that you should have input. So that needs to be communicated and also tracked on a monthly basis. The one thing that you need to take into account is that a monthly budget plan without historical data would likely change even more than one with historical data. And that means that you need to communicate that to management and to make sure that you have the backing in case you need to change something or in case you have any like drastic changes that you need to make. So track your plan, like create the initial plan, request the budget, fill in the targets, and then after 1 month, look at the plan again, compare your plan to the actuals, see if you're still on track. If you're on track, great. If you're not on track, change the plan and make sure that you have the budget and you have the right targets to reach your goals. That's basically it. Once you do that for a while, the plan is going to start aligning to the historical data that you would have used. And from there, you can continue and maintain the same kind of process again and again easily. So yeah, hope that helps. Bye-bye.
Stay